Hey, this is your Olympic hero, Kurt Angle, and you're listening to the Lazy Booking Podcast. Go, it's true. It's damn true.
Welcome, everybody. A2D Radio, niche night, flip-flop, and hockey happy hour with Lazy Booking tonight because we have a special guest joining us. We're going to give our shout-out first to our sponsors here of Lazy Booking and A2D Radio. Shout out to our doctor, Dr. Paul Vidal at Specialized Physical Therapy in Burlington, Cherry Hill, Princeton, New Jersey. You can find him on the web, specializedphysicaltherapy.com, as well as Ambuck Services. Anything you need as far as landscaping, gutter guards, cleaning, tree trimming, deck installation, restoration. These guys got you covered. Let them know that A2D has sent you, the fam here at A2D has sent you. You get 20% off at ambuckservices.com. And our topic of conversation is going to be the legendary MMA and professional wrestling superstar, the world's most dangerous man, Ken Shamrock. Our specific conversation that we're going to have, or at least the question that's going to come up where our topic is centered around, which is brought to you by QB54, best tailgating game in the business. Check it out, playqb54.com. Ken's going to be going into the Impact Hall of Fame, and we believe here that he is a WWE Hall of Famer and many other Hall of Fames. So the topic of conversation is, Ken is a WWE Hall of Famer, agree, disagree, because that's what A2D is, agree to disagree. So everybody who's joining us, I know there's a lot of excitement around this show. Drop your comments in. They'll pop up on the screen. I'm sure Ken will see it, some of them. We'll try to get to some of your questions. We got a lot to talk about. So first and foremost, from myself, Maddie, and Mr. Ritz over here, we want to welcome you to the show. Ken, thanks for taking the time.
Hey, I appreciate it, you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Ken's got a book out, and we were just kind of talking about it before we hopped on the air. It's called Shamrock, World's Most Dangerous Men. And guys, you got to go on. You got to get the book. I told Ken before we went on the air, I'm not just blowing smoke up his ass because he's on with us. It is, I'm talking, can't put it down cover to cover. It's been phenomenal. So definitely check it out. And we're going to talk about this book with Ken. We're going to go through some of the points in his MMA career, and we want to hear from the man himself, as well as his professional wrestling career. So Ken, first and foremost, a lot of the book, it kicks off a lot where you talk about your childhood, which was not the easiest childhood, coming up in Georgia. And then, eventually you found your way after, battling some issues with being in and out of detention centers and just kind of, having a chip on your shoulder because you had to fight for everything, winding up in the Shamrock household. So can you kind of just talk about a little bit about, your growing up and then kind of what it was like when, you found your way to the Shamrock household and your relationship with Bob?
Yeah, it was in a tough situation because my biological mother, she had a child when she was 16, I believe. And then I came around when she was 17. So she had 3 kids, 3 boys, all in the same age of 6, 7, and 8. And so she wasn't even a woman yet, right? And back in them days, you're talking back in the 60s, it was just a different world for women. And even girls that were a little bit younger tended to get married off sooner. And so that's kind of what happened with my mother, was that she had 3 kids very young. She wasn't able to deal with us because we were definitely high maintenance. And so she just kind of checked out. Like, she didn't really raise us. And then my biological father I never really knew him, right? He just disappeared. I never really knew him. And so she's trying to raise these 3 kids, and she's working at these clubs, and we're at home by ourselves at very young age, and we're fighting in school. We're growing up in a neighborhood that's predominantly African American, and it seems like we're constantly fighting because of the racial tensions going on in the media and news. And here we are, this white family stuck right in the middle of this predominantly African American neighborhood. So the kids are looking at us and seeing what's on TV, and then all of a sudden all these fights start. we don't even know why we're fighting. We're just fighting to survive. But there was just a lot of that tension. And so then my mom ends up meeting a guy out of the military. And again, we weren't raised, right? Man, we literally raised ourselves from the time we could walk till we were probably around 7, 8 years old. And so she meets this guy, and he's in the military. He flew a helicopter, and I remember she meets the guy. We jump in a car. I don't know how long they were dating, very short time, and we head to Napa, California, and that's like 3,000 miles away, right? We're jumping in this car, and we're heading to this place we've never been out of, Georgia. I mean, this was where we were born. This is where we have been growing up. And all of a sudden, we're going to this new world. And we're like, oh, yeah, we got a daddy. We're going to have a white picket fence. We're going to have our own bed. Because we all slept in the same room. Like, we didn't have beds and mirrors or any TV or any of that stuff. And so we're thinking, yeah, we're we got a family. And so we get there, and it obviously doesn't turn out well, because the mixture of the discipline and not being raised did not mix well. It's like oil and water. It just doesn't happen. And if it gets too hot, it's going to catch on fire. So we literally drove this guy bats. I mean, he even to a point to where he beat us up. He literally just beat the hell out of us. And we ran away. Well, we ended up running away because of the violence there. We ended up robbing and stealing and doing all kinds of stuff. My 2 older brothers ended up in youth authority, which is the kids' prison. I ended up in juvenile hall and lockdown when I was 10, ended up in and out of group homes and juvenile hall till I was 13, ended up at the Shamrock boys home at 13 years old. And that's really where I felt like it was a mansion when we walked in. It was a beautiful home. And I just felt like, man, this guy, something's wrong here. Like, we don't belong here. And I remember just talking to him, and he just was different. Like, he came at us. He sent the probation officer to get some milk and some cookies, and he talked with us. There was 2 other kids that went with me from Napa, and he starts talking to us. Well, all the other homes we went to, he'd send us off with some senior kid, and he would show us around, and they would talk to the probation officer. Well, he did the opposite. He sent him away and started talking to us. And he just did things differently. And it wasn't probably 3 or 4 months into the when I was there, I felt like, okay, I might be able to make it here. And so my world changed, man. I felt like he directed me towards sports because I was constantly fighting. I was a violent kid. I was angry. And he helped me direct that into something positive, which was wrestling and football. And I remember even on the football team and the wrestling, people thought I was nuts. They just thought I was crazy because all I wanted to do was hit people. And so they literally just, they had to get to know me because I was really intense. And but that's when everything started to change for me, because then all of a sudden I wasn't just this punk kid in a group home. I was this kid that had some talent and that they needed to be on the football field. Therefore, they paid me extra attention to make sure I had my grades up.
Gotcha. Oh, man. So, obviously that was a big life-changing thing for you. And like you said, your relationship with Bob Shamrock, who ended up being your adoptive father, changed a lot of things for you. Can you talk about that relationship specifically kind of as the years went on? Because I know a lot throughout your book, Bob was next to you through a lot of your major events, whether it was UFC, your transition to WWE. So can you talk about, how much that relationship as the years went on continued to grow and kind of be important to you?
Yeah, it was a double-edged sword because, early on, I didn't have an understanding of how a kid was supposed to behave. And I was there for a while, and he was basically teaching me how to be a young man and to hold up to your word and get good grades and, be responsible, and your word is your bond. He was just showing me all these things that I had never experienced that fathers show their kids. And it felt like I had a family. And then my mom, who's my mom now, Dee Dee, who was his wife, they ended up getting divorced my sophomore year. And I felt like my world was coming apart. Like they were going to take us out of the home. We were going to go back into placement again. And I just felt like I had done everything right. And all of a sudden it's all being taken away. And then I remembered that he had told all of us that he was going to run the home. Like he was going to go ahead and move forward with the home, and that he was going to make sure that he could keep the counties that would allow us to stay, because a lot of counties would pull them out when they go through something like that because they don't want the kids to have to go through something like that again. Most of them have already gone through it. But Napa allowed him to keep us. So we ended up staying. And when I say double-edged sword, what I mean was because I built a relationship with him. It's almost like I was his son. It wasn't like that with a lot of the kids. You know, there was me and one other person. That was Frank. But Frank came in, 10 years after me or something. And so I had built a relationship with him. Like he was my father. But when Dee Dee had left because of the things that had gone wrong in their marriage, which nobody even knew about, it was hidden real well. All of a sudden, I started becoming more of that person that he had to lean on, which was his wife, and now it was me. And I just felt so much pressure. Like, what do I do? Like, I don't know how to handle this. I don't even know how to handle to be a kid. I'm just now learning how to do everything the right way. So all of a sudden this pressure started just building on me. And I just remember a lot of times I just felt like I couldn't breathe. But I loved him. I mean, I respected him, and like he was everything. It was my road to be able to be somebody, and he was there for me, and he was always there for me. And all of a sudden now I'm like that other person for him, where I had to be there for him, but I'm like, I don't know how. And so it was really complicated. And I think in the book, I think you can kind of see a little bit of that if you read between the lines, that there was some complications. We were fighting a lot because I just felt like he was, as much as I love him and I respect him and he did a lot for me, I just felt like he was crossing the line sometime, where he was constantly around my marriage and constantly around me and constantly wanting to be involved. And I remember even at times he would say, even to my wife, Tanya now, where he would say, well, I want to go to dinner with Ken. And she would say, well, that's not how it works, Bob. This is a family. And that if you want to go with Ken, we go as a family. But he wanted time with me alone. And I just, for whatever reason, I didn't understand that. I had a hard time dealing with through our whole relationship. It was like, dude, you're my father. And so it just got real complicated, and it just felt like at times I just couldn't breathe, and I felt stressed, but I loved him. I mean, I really did. And I respected him, and I would never be where I'm at without him. So it was really complicated, and it even got more complicated as time went on.
Yeah. Eventually, Ken, we'll kind of we'll transition into, where you started to take off in terms of your athletic career, and you went over to Japan, and there was a little thing called pancrase that you were involved in heavily.
Yeah.
So can you tell us about that experience? Because just kind of reading through the book, it's a fascinating. I didn't know a whole lot about it before this. For me, you introduced me to UFC, and we'll get into that shortly, but the pancrase aspect of everything, I didn't really know a lot about it. And I know Maddie up here wanted to know about that. And Maddie, after you could follow up with the question you had too, but can you tell us about that organization and kind of how all that came about?
Yeah. When I first started out, it was the UWF. It was Maeda, Takada, Yamada, not Yamada, but Fujiwara. It was really, really young. Like Funaki and Suzuki were just coming up as stars. They were young stars getting ready to build. But there was always those three big guys up there, where there was Yamada and Maeda, and not Yamada, but not Funaki, but Fujiwara, Takada. Yeah, Takada and Maeda. And then they broke up. I was there 2 shows, and all of a sudden it broke up. And I was like, dude, this was awesome, but now it's gone. And then I remembered Sammy, who was the booker who brought me in, ended up saying, hey, we're starting a new group with Fujiwara Gumi. And so we're going to go in that direction. So I went with Sammy, and I said, okay, cool. I don't mind doing that. Well, we got there, and I remember we were there for a little bit. We were starting to do shows and starting to get some energy there. And I was really starting to become that gaijin, that star that they needed for their organization. And then all of a sudden there was rumbles in there with Suzuki and Funaki and even myself where I had to go in and fight because a guy, what was this? The Muay Thai fighter that actually knocked Fujiwara out, and I had to go in and fight him. It was weird because here we were in this organization, and we were trying to like make this thing more of a real, like a worked hard shoot, and it felt like it was getting soft. And I remember one time where I had to go in and wrestle Fujiwara, and I had to put him over, and I didn't mind doing that. I was like, okay. But just before that, this guy goes in there, Don Nielsen, who was a Muay Thai fighter, goes in there and has a fight with Fujiwara, and he knocks him out. Like it wasn't supposed to happen. He goes in there and just boom, and hits him with the knee and knocks him out. So they come to me and say, hey, we want you to fight this kickboxer, and it's going to be a shoot. And this was in Fujiwara Gumi. It was the first shoot and the only shoot, I think, besides me and Takahashi. And so I go in there and I destroy this guy. I just literally just go in and bring him down and just crush him. Well, the next time I go out there, they have me wrestle Fujiwara again, and they want me to put him over.
Yeah.
And I just went in and fought for you because this guy took advantage. And now after I beat him, you want me to come in behind this and put you over after you already just got beat by this guy. I had to go in and beat his ass. Now you want me to come in there and wrestle and put you over. It was like, dude, that's what I thought we were getting away from. I thought we were trying to build something that was a hard shoot where people would go in and they couldn't tell the difference between the shoot and a work. Yeah. And so I remember that's when we started talking. Fouquet, Suzuki, Funaki, they came to me and said, dude, we want to break off. We're going to start this new organization. It's going to be all real shoots. And I was like, I'm down. I said, I'm in. Because I just felt like we were going the wrong way. And so that's how it started with the Pancras, was that that Fouquet and Suzuki and Funaki came to me and said, dude, we want you. I was the only one that came over. And so I remember when we did the Pancras thing, and we had that first show where it was a shoot, and I fought Funaki in the finals. And that was, to me, was the start of everything for me, because it was something that I, my whole life, have been doing it anyways, and I would get arrested for it. I got 17,000 people screaming and yelling my name because I'm beating the hell out of somebody, and I'm like, man, where was this when I was 10 years old?
I love it. Yeah, why not make a little cash on the, make a little bit of coin while you're doing it too, right?
Yeah,
as well, right? And those Japanese paydays are definitely good ones.
Cash, man, $10,000 bills of cash here.
So Ken, you obviously you do that in Japan with Pancras and everything, and obviously in MMA getting started in the States, everybody of course remembers the early days of UFC. I just wanted to know, what was UFC like in the early days? Nowadays it's very like, Dana White running this big corporation that's become a pay-per-view juggernaut that was destroying WWE month in and month out. What was it like in the early days when UFC was getting going?
Yeah, it was it was tough. It was exciting, but it was you didn't know what was going to happen, right? Are we going to do the show? Are we going to have to jump in a plane, fly to another town and do the show? It was just so much uncertainty of whether or not fights were going to happen, or whether somebody was going to come in and say you can't kick or you can't punch him on the ground, or it was just so much uncertainty. And I remember, for me, I just blocked everything out. I did everything I was supposed to do, and if something came up, we dealt with it then. But it was definitely the Wild Wild West, man, because there was a lot of stuff that that you could do in there. And in today's world, man, you get arrested for sure. Walking up, you get a guy, you punch a guy, you knock him down on the ground, you walk over, you kick him in the face, or better yet, when he's laying on his stomach, just stomp on his head.
Yeah, I think
that works, I guess.
Yeah, I think there was a story in there where was it Dan Severn who gave you, for the lack of a better term, he gave you a nut shot.
Yeah.
It was Dan, right? Which,
yeah,
I mean, nowadays, you're deducting points off of things.
Yeah, well, that was funny, too, because there was a whole lot of stuff went on before that, because me and Dan had gone at each other in a press conference because he got up and walked out while I was talking. And so I told him I was just going to beat him, but now I'm going to hurt you. And so there was a little heat going on there with Phyllis and Dan and myself. And so we get in there to do the fight, and I remember shooting on him, and he sticks his head down there, and I choke him out. And the second time I got it, I locked it in. I was like, you ain't getting out of this one. And I literally, I was trying to squeeze him so hard that I would pop his eyeballs out. I mean, I was squeezing. And I remember I hear him start to go limp, right? And I'm like, oh, I got it. He's done. And the next thing I know, I see this hand raise up like this. And I thought he was doing the old Hulk Hogan or pro wrestling thing. Drop it, raise it, drop it. The only problem is he raised it. He held it up there for a minute. And then all of a sudden I seen it go, boom. And then I hear this clank. Oh, goodness. If I didn't have a steel cup on, I'd be singing the soprano right now.
I love it.
Oh, that's great. What? Oh, sorry.
That was the first UFC card or fight that I remember watching, actually, and that's what introduced me, was your fight against Dan Severn, where you defeated him for the UFC championship at that point. So, I mean, for me, I mean, you're the guy who got me into it, and to this day, I'm still a fan of it. But go ahead, Maddie. What was your question there?
I was just going to say, after all of that, with Severn, do you have a relationship with him today? Or, even after the time that you guys spent in WWE where they were trying to do something and it never really correlated too much to anything there. But do you still have a relationship with him today at all?
Yeah, we spent some time in Australia. We did a 40-minute Broadway match, probably more like an hour. But and we had a great match. And he's in tremendous shape. I respect him. He's older than 3, 4, 5 years older than me, and he's in great shape. So I definitely give him props. He's in tremendous shape. He's got a great character. He's a good person. And we've had our differences along the way. He's made some comments about me, and I made comments about him. But there's a point in time, where you get to a point where you're not fighting anymore. So there's really no reason to go after anybody if you're not going to fight, because otherwise it's just talk.
Yeah,
true.
I'm going to do a little word association, if you don't mind, or more of a name drop, and just give me your gut reaction to him. Royce Gracie.
That'll get me in trouble. I don't know how to explain it, but as a fighter, I got the highest respect for him. But not as a fighter, as a fighter, I have been very disappointed in him in the way that he reacted in some of the things. And I can give you an example. When I first fought him, I got choked by the gi, and I tapped, and the referee didn't see it. And they asked me, did you tap? And I wanted to say no so we could keep going, because I felt like I didn't know what the gi could do. And at that point I found out, and I thought if I would have went again, it would have probably been a different, but I did tap. And so I remember looking up going, I tapped, and I hated saying it, but that's what happened. And I remember when me and him fought our third fight, he knees me in the groin. Ooh. And then he goes in the press conference and says, that's how we used to fight. He should have known that. I was like, how is that right? How is that not? He should have said, I'll fight him. Or at least he should have said, give him his 8 count or 10 count, and we could continue the fight. Instead, he walked out of the ring with the win. instead of going, I hit him in the nuts, I know I did, we'll do it again, or give him his 10 count and we'll finish this. But he didn't do that. And to me, I lost a lot of respect for him in that moment, because that was something that is going to go down in history as a very disappointing time for fans and for myself.
Yeah. Tank Abbott.
Drunk.
I love it. He had a profound effect on the early days. Senator John McCain.
Misinformed. Definitely misinformed.
And I will say, I'll add to that one and say Larry King. Because your infamous appearance on Larry King with John McCain.
Yeah, he just didn't have an understanding. He didn't understand what he's talking about.
Yeah, do you and obviously I think we know the answer, but those early days seemed to be very misunderstood of what the sport was trying to be. And listen, we all know it was barbaric in some instances. We were talking about hair pulling and nut shots, for lack of a better term, but it was pretty clear with the vision of what you guys were trying to do. Are you proud to see what the sport has evolved to, at this point? Do you feel an ownership being one of the pioneers to get it to the point that it's at today?
I do. I think that it's definitely come a long ways. It had to make changes because first of all, you got to make fighters safe, and you got to do whatever you can to make the sport safe so you can keep doing it. So I get it. The only thing that I think I would say on the opposite side of that is that just like with NFL and the NBA and baseball, they find ways for the sport to be more exciting for the fans. Like they find rule changes and they find different situations that make it more exciting to watch the event, watch things. Just like with football, where they're basically taking out the hitting of a quarterback or hitting a defenseless receiver, which is now regulating to more touchdowns and more yards and catching, and it's exciting. So it's because of the rule change, making it more exciting to watch. And I think that if the UFC would take on something like that, where they can actually start making some rule changes to change the rules a little bit, to make the fights faster so that you don't have so many decisions, that you put people in a position to fight more. I think then if an organization does that, they're going to be around a long time. But just like with boxing and kickboxing, they never pay attention to what's going on in the media. They never pay attention to what's going on with the fans, to be able to make those slight changes to keep it exciting for the fans and keep growing.
Ken, what was it like doing Ultimate Fighter back in 2005?
It was fun, but at the same time, disappointing. And I could go on a couple different levels. One was that I was used to being able to bring guys in that wanted to be there, and that I would train them for 6 months to a year, and then, of course, they would fight. So I would break them down. I hardcore work them out, get them to a point where they're ready to fight, and they would go in and usually win. With 6 months or a year of training, they beat a guy that was a 6-time world champion in black belt jiu-jitsu, just because of the training that we did, the hardcore stuff we did. When I went to that show, it was like I had no clue on how to train these guys, because we were fighting with 4 days' notice. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, if this is the way it's going to go, I'm going to have guys spar, and I'm going to have guys go hard like I did in my tryouts. And so that way, when we get into the fight, they're already ready to go no matter who they pick. But a lot of those fighters fought me on it. I think there was one fighter on the team that actually went along with it, but then there was nobody really to train with. So I had to work with him, to train with him and fight with them, because a lot of the other guys were saying, I'm not training like that, I'll get hurt. Well, you don't train like that, because you don't fight and spar before you go in and a week of the fight. And I was like, yeah, you don't, but we're in a different thing now. We're in a different world. We're only got 4 days when they tell us who we're fighting. So everybody has to train that way. So that way, whoever they pick, we're all ready to go. But I ran into a lot of resistance with the way that I wanted to do it. And I get it. These guys didn't want to go in there and bang and possibly get cut or even hurt themselves. But that's the way I train. I train hard, and I've always trained hard. I'm 110%. And it just takes, I think it's a different kind of individual to do that. I think most guys would rather walk in fresh and maybe not in good shape rather than walk in bruised and sore and in great shape to fight. They just don't feel like they're ready to fight because they got bumps and bruises. But to me, I don't feel ready to go unless I got bumps and bruises.
Right. And just to follow up on that, that's coming on the heels of your feud with Tito Ortiz. What was it like having him on the other side of that show?
It was that. I thought that was exciting, man. I look back on it. I was proud to be a part of it. I thought Tito Ortiz did a great job. You know, he was great for me. I just wish I'd have been 10 years younger so we could have really put on some great fights, because I really believe that if we would have been at each other's prime, man, they'd still be talking about our fights. They'd still be talking about the rivalry. So I thought he was tremendous. He's a great individual. We're friends now. And in my opinion, probably pound for pound, the best fighter in his prime was the best fighter. So I have a lot of respect for him. Like I said, I just wish I'd have been 10 years younger. At least let me be in my late 30s and early 40s, please.
Ken, before we transition to your pro wrestling career, you know, obviously you started the Lions Den. You know, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but can you talk about, you know, how you feel the legacy of the Lions Den, the legacy that's left behind, and you know, what that experience was like for you to run your own MMA school, which essentially really that was basically the first MMA school in the United States. Can you talk about, you know, kind of kicking that off?
Yeah, you know, I remember the reason why I started was because I was going over to Japan, and I was trying to go into gyms and trying to find places to train. And I remember I walk into some of these Muay Thai schools because they were the hardest stand-up system, and I would say, hey, I want to come in and train. I'm over in Japan. I want somebody trying to kick and punch at me. I'm going to take them down. And they would look at me like, yeah, we don't do that here. So, yeah, I know that. I said, I'm just trying to get some training in over in Japan, and I need to figure out how to fight and be able to take guys down while they're punching at me, and I'm not going to hurt them. And they look at me like, no, we don't do that here. I was like, I know that. I get a wrestler and go, hey, I want you to shoot on me. I'm going to punch at you. He goes, no, I don't want to get hit. I started doing tryouts. I started finding kids off the street, you know, people that weren't really have a place to stay. And I would go, hey, if you pass the tryouts, you know, you can live here. I'll take care of you. We'll train and we'll work out, but you got to give me your time. And so I had Scott Bazak and Vernon White were my first students. And then I got Guy Mesger and Jerry Bolin and Pete Williams, Mikey Burnett. You know, there's a list of guys that go on, but those are the earlier ones where I was training them. And after 6 months, guys were getting good because I trained, like I said, you can look at the book, I train much differently than most people. I would get on the mat and we would go at it, and I would make these guys fight because I felt like I would get so much more out of these guys, and they would gain so much more knowledge and so much more experience by doing it, and constantly going in and fighting out of submissions and fighting with me. And then pretty soon, within 6 months, I'm actually working in there now. I'm not just tooling them. They're actually fighting back, and they're giving me a workout. So I felt like that was really a great opportunity to I was learning on the fly like everyone else. But I felt like, man, that was a tremendous, and I think it would work today if it wasn't so easy for fighters to go other places and train. But to have that hardcore training, guys won't put themselves through that. Not anymore, not unless there's something they can gain. And the only thing I had at that time was that I could get them in the UFC and in Pancras, which was the only game in town. So they had to be there. They had to train with me, and they had to you know, be there and work out. And I held them to responsibilities. And that's why I was able to develop 7 and 8 world champions within a 6-month period. Guys develop really fast because of the way we trained. And I know when you read the book, you hear some of the guys in there whining and crying about how I would beat them up. And it was like, yeah, unfortunately, that's not what it was. But I could see how they could see that, because in my mind, I was trying to put them through the worst thing they would ever go through. So when they walked into the ring to fight somebody else, they had already been through anything worse they're ever going to face with someone else.
Man, I love that mentality. I'm glad I didn't go through it, but I love that mentality. So Ken, in '97, you signed your WWE contract, a 3-year deal with WWE, and obviously this was a transition for you, kind of moving away from full-time MMA fighting. I know you kind of dabbled back in a little bit as it went along, but can you talk about signing with WWE and really learning how to transition in terms of a truly kind of a work sport?
Yeah, it was. I remember going up to the Hearts in Calgary. Spent some time up there with Brett. Got to work out with a bunch of different guys. Got to hang out with Stu. It was his birthday actually one day, and got to hang out with him. And he put me in all these different locks and tried to make me cry. He said, "Hey kid, come here. Let me put this thing on you." I was like, "Have you ever felt this?" He grabbed my fingers, twist my wrist back. I was like, "Yeah, I feel that." Unique individual, but it was definitely an honor to be up there and train with the Hearts and have the experience that I had with them up in Calgary. It really helped me when I actually got into the WWF and I started working my match with Vader and other people that as I got more involved with the WWF, I was really had an understanding of who I was. And I remember Brad's like, "Listen, don't go in there and be another wrestler. Go in there and be what they brought you in here to be, and that is the badass. You are a world's most dangerous man. That's who you are." He said, "So don't go in there and let somebody mold you into a pro wrestler. You go in there and you do the things you do with the submissions, the leg locks, the striking, the kicking, the knees, the elbows." Says you do what you do, man, because if you try to go and be a wrestler, man, you're going to be 1 in 1,000. And so I took that to heart, and I started developing holds and moves that countered pro wrestling holds with submissions. And of course, now you see today, because of that, where I remember Undertaker did a choke slam on me, and I went into an armbar in midair. Like he lifted me up into a choke slam, and I armbarred him in midair. And,
I remember that match.
Yeah, and so all of a sudden I was doing sunset flips and leg locks. And it was just amazing to see how easy it was for me to transition submissions into pro wrestling, blocking pro wrestling moves, to where now you look at it, pre-King Shamrock, you got the rear naked, where you just kind of, it's the rest hold. You've got the sharpshooter. You got a few other ones. But after Shamrock, look how many submission holds are in pro wrestling now since I was there.
Yeah.
So it's amazing to see how much that landscape had changed over time with me being there first and actually implementing all those submission holds in there. So now all these wrestlers are looking at this saying, these are shoot moves. Like these are real moves, but they work in pro wrestling.
It's true.
So you bring up the Hearts. I got to ask, you do that match with Owen at the Heart Dungeon. What was that like?
That was fun. It hurt. He hit me with a dumbbell. He hit me with a dumbbell and controlled me with a dumbbell. He said, "Hey," he hits me with a dumbbell. He says, "How does that feel, dumbbell?" Can you pull it a little bit instead of just hitting me with it? He goes, "I thought you wanted to be real."
Man, that is classic Owen Hart right there. I love it.
Yeah.
Ken, you were in the ring. Kind of your first experience. And again, guys, pick up the book, Shamrock, World's Most Dangerous Man. It's awesome. You talk about in there really your, WrestleMania 13 and stepping into the ring in that capacity. You were, a special guest referee at that point. It was your introduction to the masses, aside from, the thing with Jerry Lawler in the ring before that. But could you talk about, this is really your first time in this environment on that level. Was that like a moment in that match where you kind of figured out like, I'm learning and seeing, I can't think of the word. The storytelling in the ring and how the entertainment aspect of this, how huge this can be.
Yeah, I thought just having the opportunity to be in there, I felt like that transition would work. And I remembered before I went in to do the thing, I remember they were talking about the match, and they were telling me, just make sure you do this, or we'll get you through it. And I remember thinking to myself, man, I just don't know if I could do this, like, because I'm a fighter, right? And if something doesn't look real to me, man, I'm not going to play. I'm not going to go, oh, you okay? I couldn't do it, right? So I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to play this if they do something that looks stupid, right? Like, I'm not going to go over there if that punch doesn't land and go, you have to give him a 3 count or a 10 count, So I was in my mind going, I don't know if I could do this. So the match starts. And 5 minutes into the match, I'm like, I'm in an MMA match. These guys are kicking the hell out of one another. And I'm thinking to myself, my goodness, this is no different than what I was doing in the MMA ring. I was like, I can do
this. Matt, you have a question?
Yeah, sure. Obviously, during your time in the WWE, you eventually got a chance to work with The Rock in 1998. What was it like working with him in that time? Because I know that was like him sort of eventually progressing to become a main eventer, and you were also getting a push as well because you would eventually get the Intercontinental title. What was that like working with The Rock at that time period and kind of having that big matchup at WrestleMania 14 and getting the King of the Ring 1998 where you had that match with him as well?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, man. That was amazing because, you start working with somebody and you don't know how it's going to go. And prior to that, Rock was struggling with the nation. Wasn't really getting that push, right? And he just kind of one of the guys. And Farouk was leading them. And so when they put us together, it was kind of like, yeah, I'll work with him and he's a good worker. But neither one of us really knew how we were going to respond to one another. And I remember our first match in there, it was like, man, this dude's smooth. And we started going, and then they gave him the mic. And I'm not much of a talker, right? I don't do a whole lot of talking, so the mic thing is not something that I do. But when he picked it up, man, I was like, dude, I'm locked in on him. I'm rooting for him. It was fun. I enjoyed watching how he was elevating himself, and when he had the opportunity, man, he jumped on it. He just moved himself right up. And so it was fun for me to be a part of that because I was doing the same thing, but mine was more through the world of being the world's most dangerous man. I'm a badass. I don't do a whole lot of talking. I'm going to just go in there and beat you down. And so we were two different kind of characters, but yet we were both climbing the ladder. And in my opinion, and again, it's a humble opinion, me and Rock towards the end there, we started putting on some of the best matches on the card. We were really gelling, and it was, like I said, it was one of those things where I believe it raised his level to where he got the push, and it raised my level to where I was able to capture the Intercontinental title, win King of the Ring. It was so many things that I was able to do, and I appreciate it because I know me and him really worked well together, and it really elevated both of our careers.
Yeah,
I want to follow up on this because there's a lot of comments about it, Ken, with The Rock.
Yeah.
Jason Cardamone and Eddie Moskowitz. The chair shot.
Yes.
To this day, it's one. If it's not the most brutal, famous chair, I mean, maybe aside from Royal Rumble '99 with Rock and Mankind and Mick Foley, it's one of the most legendary chair shots. And I read about it in the book.
Just so you know, Foley came to me after I took those chair shots and asked if he could take 5.
I did see that in the book.
It's so good in the book, but do you mind telling our viewers about that story, how that came about? Because that is insane.
Yeah, I remember me and Rock were in the locker room, and we were going over some of the spots and stuff, and we had already worked a little bit together, and he kind of knew me, and he was talking about he was going to come in, he was going to do a chair shot, and I go, well, how are you going to do it? And he says, well, I just walk up and I'll hit you here, and I was like, no, it says I don't want in the top of the head or in the back, I want to see it. And he looked at me. He goes, well, what do you want? You want me to hit you? Well, how do you want me to hit? I said, I want you to hit me in the face. He looks at me because I'm laughing because his eyes. He doesn't really do the rock eyebrow, but he does the rock eyebrow, but not like intentionally, right? He kind of turns his head, and looks at me, and his eyes raise up. And he goes, what? I want you to hit me in the face. And he keeps staring at me, waiting for me to bust up laughing, right? He just keeps staring at me, and he's like, and I'm like, no, I'm serious. And he goes, I'm not hitting you in the face. I'm like, I go, well, if you hit me the way, I ain't going to sell it. And he looked at me and he goes, are you serious? I go, yeah. I said, my skull is thick in the forehead. I said, if you hit me in the back of the head or the side of the head, or the top of the head, I can't see it, and it's not as thick as my forehead. I said, if you swing that at me, I will take care of it. You just swing it. And he goes, all right, I'll do it. He goes, you're either freaking crazy, you're half crazy, or you're just absolutely stupid. I'll take a little bit of both, but whatever. So he's literally going, are you sure? And I go, dude, I'm telling you, you swing for my face. If I get hurt, it's on me. And so he goes, all right. And just before we go out, I pull him on the shoulder and I go, Rock, I'm telling you, if you don't swing this and you don't lay it in there, I promise you, I won't sell it. He looked at me and he goes, oh, don't worry, I'm throwing it. He threw it because Farouk slid into the ring. And I remember when he was sliding in, Farouk stops and does that. Oh shit! What did you just do?
Oh man, I love it.
Oh man, that's great. And I were you coaxing him at all? Because you do this when you were doing this in the ring. Was that just to sell it, or were you trying to like, come on, hit me, let's go?
That was from our conversation in the locker room when I said, you better bring it.
Ken Shamrock telling The Rock to just bring it there.
Oh, that's great.
Oh God! So Ken, you guys do the Lions Den match. How did that come about? Whose idea was it? What did you think of it being named after something you essentially create? Right?
Yeah, it was pretty cool, especially when they were talking about the Lions Den match. And I remember when we first did it, it was kind of a slant. I remember I told them, I said, you don't want it up straight, we slant it a little bit. We had to change it, right? Because we didn't want to steal any copyrights or anything that UFC may have had. So we kind of made it a slant, made a walkway above it. And I felt like if we did do the slant part, that we could still use it like a rope. If it was straight up and down, there's really not much you could do with that. So I thought by having the slant in there, we could do a whole lot more off of the fence. And so we came up with that. And then I remember we did the first couple matches in there, and we had some, with Owen Hart was awesome. It was really, really a tremendous match, like the dungeon match. And then Vince kind of stayed on the outside looking in, but he didn't want to get in there. But Steve Blackman. But when me and Steve did it, we thought, well, he's going to get into my world. And he was like, but I want to bring him into my world. So let's hang some weapons up around the edge so that Steve would be able to grab kendo sticks and nunchucks and all kinds of things that would bring him into his world, right? So it was a really creative way to kind of go, well, this is Ken's world, but yet Steve Blackman is now bringing his world into Ken's world. And so I thought it was really unique and very clever on how we were able to do that and be able to bring Steve into it and bring the things that he was good at into it. Being able to have the match with Owen and his wrestling skills, his ability to be able to work in anything. And so it was really a tremendous idea, I thought. And I really enjoyed it and kind of sad to see it go.
Ken, you were there the night of the infamous Montreal screw job. And you talk about it a little bit in your book. Can you kind of give us a firsthand account of, what that night was like for you, kind of being right in the forefront in terms of being back up there.
Yeah, it was uncomfortable because Brett brought me in. He trained me. He worked with me. That's what the WWF wanted, and he educated me, right? So I was kind of part of the crew. And I remember when this thing, they were talking about the strap and the belt, and that Brett had came to me and said, he wanted to lose the strap to me. Like he wanted to drop it only to me, or at least that's what he said to me, right? So I guess I had no idea what was going on behind the scenes with Sean and with Vince and with Brett, other things I had no idea. I was excited that Brett was looking at me and wanted to do a program with me and eventually drop the straps to me. I was excited, right? Like, okay, here's my opportunity. And then all of a sudden we're all doing this match, and then all of a sudden Brett's pinned. He loses the title. I'm like, I didn't think that was supposed to happen. And then they came back, and there was all kinds of fireworks and people mad and angry. And I remember walking in the locker room, and I think it was Owen, and there was Davey Boy and Anvil. I don't remember who else. And I remember walking in, and Brett goes, "Hey, you got my back?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course," but I didn't know what. Like, what was he talking about? And so I'm standing there, and we're all in there, and here comes Vince and Pat Patterson and some of the other crews coming in, and I'm like, what's going on? And Pat goes, "Everybody get out." And I was like, looking at Brett going, is this who I'm supposed to be backing up, man? I work for this guy. What's happening here? And I remember he looked at me and he said, "Go ahead, just you guys go ahead and go out." And so I remember walking out of there thinking to myself, he got screwed. So he got screwed. And I remember as I started to walk out, I hear this crash, bang, boom. I look back and Brett's floored Vince. Oh, this is not going to turn out well. Yeah, that's it. But like I said, we weren't. I know the book says we were in there, but we were all let out as the fight started to go off. We were just leaving the room, so we didn't get to get in and see the ending of that. We didn't see what it all inspired through that whole thing because we were all on our way out the door.
I did want to mention this comment on one of our pages that this is streaming on. A guy by the name of Chris Robbins, he says, "I actually wrestled on a show with Ken in 2001 or 2002. It was at Maple Point Middle School. He was way cool in the locker room, which was awesome. I worked a battle royal while he wrestled Gangrel in the main event." Pretty crazy.
Yeah. Gangrel, there's a character.
Yeah.
For anyone out there who hasn't seen a shoot interview of him, do that.
Hey guys, do you mind if I run and grab my charger because my battery's getting low?
Yeah, go ahead, go for it.
Yeah, go right ahead.
I'll be right back and get my charger.
Absolutely. Cool. It's a great. I'm telling you. So while he stepped away, guys, I'm going to plug the book again. It's called Shamrock, World's Most Dangerous Man, and I'm telling you guys, I have not been able to put this book down. It is so good. Andy is not a reader.
No, not at all. I've been sitting here for the last probably 4 hours just in darkness reading this book.
Yeah, I mean, Andy texted me and he's like, "Dude, I am amazed by some of the stories in this book right now." I'm like, I'm telling you, man. But it's a very honest account from Ken about a lot of things in his life, guys. And I definitely suggest that you guys picked it up. And it was a collaboration that he did with Jonathan Snowden, who works for Bleacher Report. Really, really good stuff. I'm
just thinking of Andy. He's like one of those like monks or one of those scribes who just sits in a dark room and is just reading books, just turning the pages with incense burning all around him.
You think really highly of me then.
That's because you're in a dark room reading a book, so it just immediately like, what?
I don't like lights. Leave me alone. Quit judging.
Matt, so Matt asked, is there a website for the book? We actually have the if you go through the comments, Matt, the link to the book for Amazon has been dropped in there. So you can find the book there, and Ken will tell us too where we can find the book at. Ken, I wanted to ask you about a name in the book that, you know, you're very open and honest in the book when you talk about you lived a very free lifestyle on the road. And there was a couple dates where you had missed some shows, and Jim Ross had a very poignant conversation with you out on the dock about missing shows, and you accepted obviously the accountability for that. So I wanted to ask about Brian Pillman, because it seems like that was somebody that you were close to, and obviously, with his passing, that had a profound effect on you. So can you kind of talk about your relationship with Brian and, how that event affected you?
Yeah, I remember when I first actually started on the road, he rode with me. He rode with me a couple different places. And like I said, I hadn't experienced anything like this. I partied a little bit, especially pre-WWF. And then when I was in the UFC and all that, I partied, but it was like drinking and a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but nothing like what I was about to experience on the road with Brian. And I remember I pulled into I think it was a Waffle House somewhere, and all the boys were there. It was like a couple miles from the arena where we were at, and Stone Cold was in there, and some other guys were in there, and some of the gals that made the uniforms. So me and Brian get there, and he had drank about 4 Cokes in 5 minutes. I could just down on him, right? And it was probably 5 minutes, right? He's slurring, and he's all over the place. And I'm like, dude, you okay? And I remember I didn't have an education on what somas were at this time. I didn't know what any of this stuff was happening. I've been to parties, and parties were like everybody's up and having fun, right? So I remember getting out of the car, and I was like, dude, you want me to help you in? He had some injuries and stuff too, like he was battling. So I remember opening the door and helping him inside. I remember sitting down, and he was literally like, he couldn't sit up. And I looked over at Stone Cold, and I go, dude, I think something's wrong with him. We got to take him to the hospital. And he starts laughing. Stone Cold literally starts laughing at me. He's like, oh, dude, he is messed up. I was like, dude, we got to get him to the hospital. He's like, oh, give him an hour. He'll be fine. What do you mean? He goes, it'll wear off in an hour.
Oh, my God.
That's crazy. That's funny. Coming from one of his old tag team partners too. That's
yeah, it was like unbelievable, but it was true. He did some somas and stuff, and it had made him really relaxed and stuff, because he had broke his foot, some other things. He was bad. He had a lot of injuries, man, and I felt bad for him because he was constantly trying to fight the injuries and try to stay in the ring, and it broke my heart, man. But hey, that road will just jump all over anyone if you let your guard down for a second, man, and you start running around and partying. And I did it too. I got caught up into it, and JR put me in my place. He literally says, I don't care what you do. You want to go out and chase women, you want to party, he says, that's all on you. If you want to be irresponsible, he says, but what you don't do is you do not miss your wrestling dates. You don't come in here late. I mean, he jumped on me with both feet, and I was like, I looked at him and I said, you're right. That was wrong.
Yeah.
And, it didn't happen again.
Maddie.
Yes. So Ken, you got the Intercontinental Championship towards the towards the end of 1998, and you won the belt that was vacated at the time in the tournament, and then you turned heel too. What was the decision behind? Yeah, what was the decision behind all that? You joining the corporation, getting the Intercontinental belt, and then you eventually won the tag belts with Boss Man too.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Easy one. Cool.
You might have to ask one of the guys that put it together, because I have no idea what we were doing.
Okay. They just came to you and said, hey, Ken, you're going to win the belt and you're going to turn heel. Okay.
Yeah, that was it, man. I had no idea there was a lot of times where I kept questioning where we were going and what we were doing. And I think you see it a lot of times where you hear some of the people who had talked about me being in wrestling. And I think even in my book, it talks a little bit about where they really didn't know what to do with me. Like they literally had a superstar. They had a real Goldberg character in their organization, and they just didn't know how to use me. And I think that was a lot with my career, where I was just spinning my wheels because I don't think they really knew what to do with me.
It's interesting that you bring that up, Ken, because I know that Andy had a really good question in terms of some of the talent today.
I thought that was Maddie's question.
Oh, right, Brock.
Yeah, my question was going to be about Brock and Ronda and how they transitioned, but before that, I wanted to piggyback off of the about the whole talent and everything like that at that time, with you kind of spinning the wheels and them not knowing what to do with you. I'd always kind of wished that you were around and available at the time when Kurt Angle came in, because I'd always thought it'd be really great to see you guys get into the ring and have some matches. I think it would have been great for Kurt, and it would have been awesome to have, Shamrock and Angle, two guys who would, be synonymous with the ankle lock, of course. It would almost be like, heel, babyface rivalry, passing the ankle lock on each other. Whose ones hurts more? That'd be awesome. But what did you think about all of that? Did you ever wanted to like step in the ring with guys like Kurt Angle and stuff like that, and have an opportunity to wrestle men like him?
Yeah, and people ask me what matches would I have liked to have had, and I always say, Brock Lesnar, obviously, Kurt Angle, where we would have the ankle lock match. I thought that was a missed opportunity because he's a tremendous athlete, excellent wrestler, determination beyond a normal human being. And so I thought we could have really done something special in there. It would have been nice if he was around when I was having the thing with The Rock, and then being able to work something with him, because like I said, I don't think they knew what to do with me. And if I think Kurt was there, I think that would have been a tremendous start to be able to build something off of that moving up. And, but yeah, I thought that those were the two that I looked at when people asked what match, you think you would have liked to have, and in pro wrestling, and those, and then the dream match, obviously, is to, wrestle Goldberg, because Goldberg was me in WCW. And so I felt like, man, they built a character that was really like me. And it would have been cool for me to be able to wrestle me.
But yeah, so to piggyback off of that one, what did you think about, in terms of today, what do you think about Ronda Rousey transitioning out of the MMA, going into wrestling, and Brock, who started out in wrestling, went to MMA, wound up becoming a champion there, and then went back to WWE? What do you think about the transitioning of those two athletes?
Yeah, I was definitely impressed. I thought Ronda Rousey did a tremendous job. And I think Ronda, a lot of people don't really understand how hard it was for her, because I did wrestling before. So I had already been a wrestler. I did it for, I don't know, it was 2 years or something like that. And then Brock Lesnar had already done wrestling. So he could come back out of MMA and do the thing. But to actually go cold, for her to go into pro wrestling and do what she did, I thought was tremendous. Unfortunately, sometimes I think when you get kind of in a position where you start getting angry, you have too much downtime, you start talking on social media, she herself, because she started going after pro wrestling, started saying it was fake, and and it's just like, after all the work that you put into that, it's not fake. That the athletes get hurt. How hard it is to be able to be successful in it, and being on the road and going through the grind, and then say that these guys are fake. I mean, wow. I think she made a mistake there. But like I said, I don't want to take anything away from what she did, because what she did was tremendous.
So you kind of stole the next question, right? Of who's a dream match that you haven't had in the WWE. Do you have a dream match though for the UFC that somebody in the UFC that you never fought and always wanted to fight?
Well, I don't know if it's a dream match, but I do think it's a dream match that I would have liked to have had that I already had, but I had it too late in my career. And I thought Tito Ortiz and myself would have blown the UFC out of the water. They would have made so much money. We'd have been having a rivalry for 10 years because I would have been in my prime and he would have been in his prime, and we would have been beating each other. And I thought it would have been a great rivalry. It would have built it up. But unfortunately, I was way old, and he was in his prime, and so I didn't get to have that match. And I thought that, and even sad for Tito, because I thought Tito would have reached so many more heights in his career as a Hall of Famer if we would have been able to have that with the both of us being in our prime. We would have elevated both of our careers to another level.
Yeah, we don't want to take up too much more of your time, Ken. You've been gracious with it. But I do want to talk about Impact and TNA. You're currently in Impact now. You are the first recognized, because they were the NWA before. You're the first TNA champion in the history of the company. And obviously one of the pioneers for that company and an upcoming Hall of Famer, which is well-deserved. So can you talk about what that was like then, and can you talk about your experience now with Impact?
Yeah, I think back then I was doing one show a week. It was on Wednesdays, I think. They were doing tapings, and so I was very limited on my exposure there, and so were they, because they weren't doing house shows. They were just doing those tapings, and so it was hard. It was really difficult to go in and just do the one day and then go back and come back again and do another taping without having house matches and being able to build angles and be able to get good at your submissions and good at your angles and good at your psychology by having house matches. And we didn't get to do that. So I thought we did a great job, but I just thought it just wasn't as smooth and perfect as it could have been. But I thought we did a great job. We had a lot of great characters there. I thought they were on their way, especially when the Jarretts were there and they were getting all this fresh talent. Ex-WWF people that were still superstars. They had a lot of talent surrounding them, and I don't know what it was, but for whatever reason, it just never took off.
Yeah, they had some really good years in the late 2010s or 2000s as well. Now,
working with them, it's amazing because everything's there. I mean, it feels like the Attitude Era, like it really does. In the locker room, the wrestlers that are there. The way that they're doing their matches, everybody's competing with one another, trying to outdo the next person in the match. But it's all healthy. It's not like anybody's jealous of anybody. They're all wanting everybody to do well, but they all want to make sure they do better. So it's very competitive, but very friendly. And the Attitude Era was like that too. It was like everybody was competing with each other, but we all got along. And except for Brett and Sean. It was really, it's a really good group of guys, and I think that they have all the makings of really making a really solid place for them in the wrestling world. So I'm very happy to be with them. I'm excited on the direction we're going and where we're going and how we're doing it. So I think there's a lot of exciting things to come to fans, wrestling fans. So pay attention, because I really believe Impact's coming.
Yeah, I mean, you just had a phenomenal match with Sami Callihan, which was the whole build up to that was really great. Let me ask you this: empty arena. You're now in that field now of having to work empty arena shows at this point for when you guys do your tapings and whatnot. What is that experience like?
You got to slow down, because when you don't have anybody yelling or screaming, you don't have timing. Like, you usually go timing off pops and crowd exposure and comments. And so you, as a wrestler, everything you do is basically you're feeling out the crowd. You're feeling out when to do something. Is it ready? Are we time? You're like cooking the crowd. Like, you're ready to get them to pop. But now there's no crowd. Like, you can't feed off of that. So now it's just you and them in that ring, and you've got to come up with timing, you got to come up with psychology, and you got to come up with things that are going to make sense, because you can't hear the crowd whether or not they're buying into it. So you're basically like putting on a blindfold and wrestling blind. You have to trust yourself. You got to trust that you're doing things the right way. You got to trust that the crowd is going to pop and that they're going to understand what it is you're doing, because you got nothing to gauge it on. And so for me, it's very challenging, but I was able to really go in and have those matches, because for me, it's not, you just got to remember, you just go and do what you think is real and what you think is going to work, and trust in that, because you don't have anything to gauge it off of with crowds popping or not popping. You got to trust it.
Guys, one more question for Ken for each of you, and then we're going to give this gentleman his time back.
Okay, then. Was there ever any consideration to going to WCW after you were done with WWE? I know they were pretty much ready to go bye-bye forever. But at the same time, you decided to go back to MMA and do UFC, and also did stuff in Japan. Was there ever any time that you thought, maybe I'll go to WCW and see what it's like?
Yeah, I don't think that ever rose. I know in the beginning, before it all started, WCW was definitely something that I talked about, but I never got a response from anybody from there. Vince reached out very quickly and brought me in, so there was really nobody else in the game, because he came in real quick and made an offer that was really good, and so we were really happy with it. But as time went on, when I got to a point where I was getting out of the wrestling, I got out because I wanted to get back into MMA. I wanted to go back into fighting. I missed it. And I felt like the road was killing me. I was getting engulfed into this world and I couldn't get out. And I just felt like I was drowning. And so I needed to get out. So there was a lot of other things that went on that also made my decision to get out. But, it's all political things that I don't want to get into right now. You read the book.
So Ken, aside from one of your own matches, do you have a favorite wrestling match?
Yeah, I got a couple. I like to say the King of the Ring, where me and Rock went at each other. I thought I was really, really excited with that match. I thought that the whole time me and Rock were able to build the marriage we had with our angle for however long that lasted, a year and a half, was really probably the best time I had in pro wrestling, because I really felt like I was elevated to the level of all the superstars. I really felt like I belonged there. And so I would say that whole time working with The Rock was real special. And again, I got to work with Shawn Michaels, The Undertaker, Bret Hart. I mean, I could name them all. I mean, who gets to do that, right? I mean, I'm in there 2.5 years and I worked with all of them. I mean, all of them. Yeah. And so it was really nice to be able to go in and work with guys. Getting in the ring with Shawn Michaels, man, when I worked with him, it was unbelievable how smooth he was and how easy it was to work with him. So yeah, it was really cool to be able to have that experience, and to pick one favorite one. Like I said, it's hard to, because I got to work with a lot of really good guys. But I would have to say that what was a great time was working with The Rock on that whole program we did.
Awesome.
I'm gonna cheat, because I'm gonna ask you a question. And I'm actually just gonna ask you a question about a current event before we hop off. In terms of WWE and Vince, do you still have a relationship, and do you believe that down the road, whether it's Hall of Fame, that there is a chance that you could eventually work in some capacity or show up for WWE, whether it's a Legends thing, an in-ring, a Hall of Fame?
Yeah, right now Impact's doing well. I'm very happy there right now. I mean, I really am. I think that we're doing some great matches, and everybody there is cool. But again, like I said, you never know what happens in the future. I'm always open. WWF got me that notoriety and the stardom that I needed. So I will always remember them, and definitely will always have an opportunity to go back there if I get the chance to. I would definitely want to wrestle there along with Impact. So, yeah, so if I had the opportunity, I definitely would. So hopefully that sometime will come. And then also the Hall of Fame. That's something that I think I really want to be a part of. I think I've done enough. And I think I just got to wait my turn. That's all. I think my time will come.
We agree. The last thing I want to ask you about, I don't know if you had a personal relationship or if you knew Shad Gaspard. Obviously, it's a tragic loss in the wrestling community. So I did want to ask if you knew Shad, and whether you did or not. I mean, I think everybody kind of knows the kind of guy he was from all the stories that came out. Can you talk about having a loss like that, a guy who's stopped an armed robbery just 4 years ago and made the ultimate sacrifice, for his family. Can you talk about that loss?
Yeah, especially in the wrestling world where everybody works so closely together, and we've seen a lot of tragedy, with accidents like with Owen Hart. It's a family, even though it's like brothers fighting with one another, and you don't come to their house for their birthdays for 10 years. But it's still a family. Everybody in pro wrestling is a family. All the boys are a family. When somebody dies like that, it takes a piece of your heart because it's a part of the family. So anytime that happens, and like I said, we've all seen that happen a lot with guys that have OD'd and guys that have had tragedy and guys that have bad health and accidents. And so it's just something that we know is a part of it. And when it happens, we have to be able to learn how to deal with it and keep moving forward, because we all know as wrestlers and being in the family, we don't want it to stop for us. We want the show to keep going on because that's how our legacy is going to live on. That's how we're going to constantly keep being remembered. So, so it's just tough. We take a moment and recognize it and take a moment to mourn the loss, and then we just move forward.
Ken, thank you so much for your time, man. This was awesome. You gave us more time than we expected. Great stories. And guys, I got to tell you again, check out the book. It's Shamrock, World's Most Dangerous Men. Man, Ken, tell them where they could find the book, because I know it's like all over the freaking place.
Yeah, you can go to my website, kenshamrock.com, and you can get the book over there. So we'll give you the information you need. But it's got all my social media sites on there too. So my Twitter, my Facebook, Instagram, all of it. And it's the best way for you to follow us on what we're doing with our book tour, because I'll be going on a book tour. And so you'll be able to know what towns I'm going to be in, where I'll be at, and also all the upcoming events with Impact and with all the other stuff that I got going on. kenshamrock.com. Check it out, man.
Yeah, and also just, are the hardback copies available yet now, Ken?
I think they just came out. They were the signed ones. Yeah. So I don't know. We haven't done a release yet. So, but I know a lot of Indiegogos and people that were supporting the book and funding the book all got those first releases. So I think here in the next week or two, we're going to do the full release. We'll do the whole release with book tour and everything.
Yeah, and we're going to come up with something here. I'm going to pick up a couple copies of the signed one, guys, and we'll do some kind of a raffle or something that maybe we could donate to somewhere, and you can win a chance to get a signed copy from Ken.
Ken, gotta love the book, man. Gotta love the book. And I want to get a synopsis on the book. I just want to give an overview on it. Is that when you read the book, it feels like sometimes where I'm just partying all the time. And so the book, when you're reading a book, it's almost hard to put time and places, right? You just kind of read it, you see it happening. But the one thing I want people to know in the book and keep in the back of your mind is that I did everything at 110%. I trained at 110%. So when guys were in there talking about me beating them up and hurting them and going hard, I did that. That's how I train. I've always done it with me, and I did it. I got it done to me when I was trained. That's just how I do it, and that's how I got it done to me. 100%, 110%, man. That's what I do. I go in, I get it done, and then I get in the ring and I go 110% there. But at the same time, when I get my downtime, if I'm going through a divorce, if I'm having trouble with my kids, and I get out on the town and I got a way to feel good, I'm doing it at 110%. If I get 5 women and they're all in the same room with me, We're going at it at 110%. I just want you to know that that's the book. That's a synopsis of the book. I'm married right now, and I'm very happy and got a happy family, and I do that at 110%. So that's what the book is, right? When you read it, understand there's no halfway with me. My whole life has been at 110%. I don't do anything halfway.
Love it, Ken. And that's a
amazing.
Great message for everybody. Ken, again, we want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us tonight. And we want to wish you and your family continued health. And I need to know what your secret is to have, a chiseled body like that at your age, man. I got to figure it out. I can't get it at my age. I'm 35. Damn. But I got to find out what your secrets are.
It's 110%.
Man just told you.
With that, thank you again, Ken. You have a wonderful night, man. We appreciate you, and you guys take care, all right?
All right, brother. Take care, man.
All right,
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you. You guys have a good night.
You too.
You too, sir. That was amazing.
My God. I teed that up. I should have known it was coming.
It was coming, 100%.
Oh, man.
Oh, man.
That was the legendary MMA professional wrestling legend, the world's most dangerous man, Ken Shamrock, who joined us for much longer than we expected. He was loving. I mean, we were having a great convo. When he went and grabbed the charger, I knew we were going beyond the hour mark.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But listen, I said it, and I said it to him. I'm not blowing smoke up anybody's ass, because we could sit here and just mention the book when need to be. I'm telling you guys, even if you're not a big reader, if you're a professional wrestling fan, I really truly believe
it's a solid read.
Yeah, I mean, I really believe that you guys are going to enjoy this book, and I think that you should pick it up. Shamrock, World's Most Dangerous Man, Jonathan Snowden worked on it with him. It's awesome. Check it out, kenshamrock.com. You can find the book there. It'll have links to the book, whether you're getting a hard copy, if you're going to get the digital copy. I have the digital now. I'm going to get myself an autographed copy, and what I'd like to do is I would like to figure out something. That's the book right there, the cover. I know we had Leonard Weaver of the Philadelphia Eagles on recently, and he has a charity. So what I would like to do is figure out something that if anybody wants to donate, and I will update you guys on it. I would like to have a raffle, or a couple of raffles, to raffle off a couple of autographed copies of the book. So stay tuned for that. We'll put that together. But guys, we asked Ken about it at the end here. Let's do a quick recap. For the story. I mean, obviously, Ken threw a lot at us, a lot of great stories. And honestly, I think he kind of summed it up perfectly at the very end there. My takeaway from the interview, and even just look at the way he gives an interview, it's 110%. He doesn't half-ass anything, and he talks about that a lot in the book. And I think my takeaway is that Ken Shamrock is a guy who came from a very difficult upbringing, and you can find out about it in the book. But he found his way and realized that anything that he is going to do, anything he's going to succeed at or fail at, he's going to go full throttle at it. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely.
You guys, anything?
Oh. Maddie?
Well, for me, honestly, the big highlight there was definitely that chair shot story. I will tell you that right now. That was great. Just because I was seeing this after he was done telling the story. I just see The Rock's. When The Rock would get that expression of shock on his face when he was selling in the ring. Uh-huh. I could just see that when Ken tells him to hit him in the face with a chair. I was just thinking, like, oh my God, I would have loved to have just been a fly on the wall where they were having that conversation. That would have been just absolutely hilarious. Oh my God.
Well, like, that's the clip I use to show people chair shots in pro wrestling. It's it's one of my probably most viewed clips of my own. It's Ken Shamrock getting crushed with a chair. That is one of my.
man.
Like I just showed it to my parts director 2 days ago, actually, talking about this interview and chair shots. I was like, "Look at this."
And, well, now you have to get them to watch him tell the story about it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know, for me, and I mentioned it to Ken, I didn't know much about MMA, and I was still pretty young. But the first MMA match or card that I ever watched was when he beat Dan Severn, and it was when he was the special guest referee for WrestleMania 13. I went to Blockbuster Video and I rented the video to have an idea of what MMA was. So,
see, I actually forget he's in that the 13 match.
Oh, I could never forget that. But awesome interview, guys. And if you missed any of it, you can go back.
I just got to say, from somebody who was in the back end just producing this, that final promo, and it was a friggin' promo at the end. I'm ready to. It's what is it? What time is it on our time? 12:30 at night. I'm ready to run through a friggin' wall right now.
You see me here, like pushing my hands together and doing this. Like, I'm amped from it too. I'm like, tomorrow I need to eat better so I can get a Ken Shamrock.
I'm over here pacing. I'm over here walking around in the room. It's not that big of a room, but it feels like it right now.
I love it. Yeah, that was awesome, man. That was really awesome. You know, before we, and again, if anybody wants to check out, if you missed any of it, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, you can go back to our podcast forums, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Spreaker, SoundCloud, Apple, Google, wherever you get your podcasts at, guys, go back and check them out. This one, I mean, for me, this one might be like a 2 or 3 time listen. I mean, this was a good one. But, you know, before we go off the air, we asked Ken about it at the end. I want to get your guys' reflection on it. We would be remiss if we didn't talk about the passing of Shad Gaspard, former WWE superstar, current actor and writer. You know, guys, I watched the video today, and, you know, Batista's not really a guy who puts his emotions out there. I don't know if anybody caught this video. It was touching, and he wasn't even a guy who was very close to Shad. When he talks about how Shad had all these dreams, and he lived a lot of them. And he talks about how he was on the cusp of really starting to make his mark in Hollywood in terms of writing and acting. And he's not going to get that experience. It was very touching, very, very touching. You know, so I just want to kind of get your guys' reaction to it. And then I would like to get what your favorite Shad and or Crime Time moment is. I feel like me and Andy are going to share the same one, but maybe not. I have 2, so.
See, I have 2 as well. One I was actually there for, and the other is just iconic. But as far as, so I did actually catch the Batista thing, and that's a tough watch. It dropped late last night, actually, and I ended up catching it. Thank you, time zones. But no, the Shad thing, like, it came out of nowhere. I think, Chrome, you were the one that dropped it in our chat, and you sit there and you kind of like, you want it to not be real. You want the body, you want him to be found and everything like that. And for somebody that was, you know, not on the top of the mountain, but one of the more entertaining tag teams of that time and entertaining individuals of that time. And then you see everything he's done after leaving professional wrestling. So it was really kind of like, I wanted him to still be alive and everything like that. As far as my favorite moment,
you know, hold the moment.
Okay.
I want to get Maddie's reaction first, and then I'm going to give mine, and then we'll do the moments.
All right.
Okay.
So, Maddie, your reaction to Shad's passing?
It's tragic. You know, I remember watching Crime Time on Raw, and they had so many great moments on Raw, and it was just funny, and it was really a shame they never got the tag team titles. They really only had one shot at them too, and they lost, and they never entertained the idea of it ever again, and that's a real shame. But I would say my favorite Crime Time moment.
Hold the moment, Maddie.
What?
You can't follow directions either, Maddie. Hold the moment.
Oh, well,
My
you
reaction.
said we know what he said, and then he changed the rules halfway through because it's his show.
Well, it's heel chrome, so it's okay. We expected it. It's all right. It's all right.
I make the rules. Sorry, pals.
I'll remember that in a few days.
That's fine. So listen, when I got a text message from my buddy who said, Chad is missing. I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, man, Chad is missing. So, there wasn't a lot of details out, but honestly, as soon as I started hearing some of the details, like I didn't want to be a Debbie Downer, but I knew that the chances of him being alive were slim to none. You don't disappear in water, not surface, and end up showing up 2 days later alive. Let's put it that way. Not off of a beach like that. It's not like he fell over a boat and found an island, and I'm not trying to be sarcastic, but that's realistically, So I kind of had a pretty bad feeling about it, but just to share a story, not an in-ring memory, a story for me was I had the chance to meet Shad in the fall and have a 25-minute conversation. It was me and two other wrestling fans, him and JTG. And I got to tell you, it was not even like hanging out with Crime Time. It was like just having a conversation with your buddies. He was personable, and welcoming are the three words that I used. He told great stories. He just kind of talked about things in general. He was hilarious. He was laughing. He's giving us high fives and handshakes. It was just a really fun experience. I actually talked to him about appearing on our show. And I literally emailed him the day before this happened to follow up on that, which is crazy. Because I had discussed with him about being on the show at some point this year. So, I mean, I'm very sad that we didn't get that opportunity. What I would say for people that are Shad fans, he recently started a podcast, and they only got 5 episodes in, but I've seen clips of it. And just for the sake of, if you want to kind of hear some of his views over this last month on some things, including he talks about, our previous guest from a few weeks ago, Leo Rush. I really would suggest checking it out. I'm actually going to pull up the name of it because it's a very fun name of the podcast. It's called, I hate this. Of course, I'll pull up the podcast in a minute. But anyway, it's called No Fucks Given Podcast, by the way.
Nice.
If you look up NFG, NFG Radio, it comes up. It's a picture of Shad. But it's really good. Just going to let you guys know. So I would suggest listening to it. Get your kind of last dose of him in terms of some of the stuff. But man, dude, guys, even when you look at like him and his wife's like Instagrams, like they were doing like these TikTok videos and stuff, like just like 2 weeks ago, you're like, damn, like that's how quick it can go. But the guy's a hero, like an actual hero, saved lives multiple times now, made the ultimate sacrifice for his child. And I actually have a friend that was on the beach watching the rescue efforts for this.
Oh, wow.
Who lives there. Yeah, I've been on that beach exactly where it happened. It's very, very sad, and those riptides can get very heavy. And, if you read the accounts on it, people said you could tell that he knew his chances of survival were pretty much slim to none. He knew saying to save his son was going to be the likelihood that he wasn't going to get saved. So dude's a hero. Dude's a great father, a great example for people. And he's going to be missed. What's your favorite Crime Time stories, guys? Let's set your favorite Crime Time. And Andy, give one. If we don't mention the other one, then you can circle back and give us another one.
Okay. Mine, so this is one I was actually there for. It was Survivor Series when it was in Philly. I think that was 2006, 2007. Mm-hmm. It was Lita's last match. She loses to Mickey, and they come out. The wholesale, yeah, absolutely. Only because it's one of the few Crime Time moments I was actually there for live. Actually, it might be the only Crime Time moment I was there for live because I didn't do a lot of shows back then. But that was hysterical. Like, they had such an energy in the room, and the whole segment was funny as hell.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back and watch that again. That was one of mine, Andy. So good job, Maddie. What's yours, buddy?
Mine was when WWE was in England, and DX was there, and so they have this whole case of money, and they gotta dump it off to somebody. And I think they stole it from Vince or something like that during that time period. So they run into Crime Time in the parking lot, and Triple H is like, "You want to give it to these guys?" It's like, I don't understand a thing they say. And Shaw's like, "Come here. I speak jive. It's okay." And so he goes over and he starts speaking to him. And then after they're done exchanging the money, Triple H just looks right at them, stone cold dead face, and says, "For shizzle," and then just walks away. And the commentators are like, "What the fuck was that?" Like, I thought that was the funniest fucking thing. I still remember that today, just the look on Triple H's face after the oh my god, that was great.
And there's my other moment.
That was my other moment. If I was to give one more, it would be when they destroyed JBL's limo with John Cena. That was pretty memorable.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were very. Frank says favorite Crime Time moment: the dance with William Regal, Teddy Long, and Vince McMahon.
That was a good one. That was a good one.
So
Frank.
good.
Frank, great pull on that one. That was great. But I got to tell you guys, they were very charismatic. It's a shame that they didn't hold the tag titles. You guys are spot on that. Guys, this was a great show. Andy, what can we expect from In This Very Ring this week?
So in this very ring this week, we're going to break down Raw, NXT, and SmackDown. NXT is getting ready for their next TakeOver pay-per-view in their house in just a few weeks on June 7th. Last night you saw Tommaso Ciampa announced that he was going to fight Karrion Kross at that event. And then as we kind of go through the different motions with both Raw and SmackDown, and Austin Theory kind of getting kicked out of the Zelina Vega tribe, moving over to the Seth Rollins tribe. I don't know. This might be Survivor now. I don't know anymore. So we're just going to touch a lot of This Week in Wrestling this week as well. Then obviously Shad Gaspard will get Butter's thoughts on that as well.
Nice. I want to give a quick programming alert as well. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. here on A2D Radio. The interviews just keep rolling in, guys. We're like Interview Central now. Former Philadelphia Phillies pitcher Pat Combs joins A2D Radio at 2 p.m. tomorrow afternoon, Eastern Standard Time. So tune into those guys. I think we're going to have Steve. I believe Tom will be a part of that. I don't know who else will be on, but they're going to talk with former Philadelphia Phillies pitcher Pat Combs. And then this Saturday on the Weekly Roundup, Brian Boom Kelleher will be joining them, MMA star. So that's going to be a fun interview as well. That's with Jake and with Steve. And we got some other ones on the horizon. I think we'll be next Wednesday. We'll be interviewing former WNBA player, international women's basketball star, and now assistant coach at Rhode Island, the University of Rhode Island. And local star for us, I went to high school with her, and she was one of the best players in the country at that point in high school. Charnay Zoll Norman is going to join us, and we're going to talk to her about her, playing around here locally in high school. We're going to talk to her about her WNBA experience, her experience being a professional athlete who has to transition and play overseas, and then obviously transitioning to coaching. So that's exciting. She's our first female athlete that we have on here. So that's
Can we get high school stories of Chrome in that too?
Well, there is going to, I assure you that I'm sure a couple of memories of me and her are going to come up. I may or may not have crossed her over and taken her to the hoop one single time in my life, and I still to this day don't ever let her forget it. But I digress.
Most athletic thing you've ever done.
It may come up on the air. We'll see. But guys, a lot of good stuff coming up. There's a couple other, Chris Pronger is going to be joining you guys in a couple of weeks.
Absolutely.
So that's really exciting. Former Philadelphia Flyer, Anaheim Duck, St. Louis Blue, Stanley Cup champion. Chris Pronger is going to be joining the Hockey Happy Hour on June 4th. Oh, and for us, guys, we have another interview coming next week.
Wondered when you're going to remember.
Holy, I'm trying to keep them all together. For Lazy Booking, guys, we're coming at you with another interview next week. Co-founder of We the Independent, huge independent name, Mr. David Starr, will be joining us. He's actually the first ever Lazy Booking wrestling interview that we did, or one of. We did him on the podcast, but we are going to revisit that. A lot's happened with David, including his epic viral promo that he cut last year on Ring of Honor and Jay Lethal. So we're going to talk to him all about that, the We the Independent movement, and a lot of things with David Starr. It's going to be a great interview. He's a Philly guy originally, so we're going to look forward to talking to him. So for myself, for Maddie, for Mr. Ritz, for Ryan Brodo and Frank Vespi, doing a phenomenal job on the back end, giving us 110% tonight. We appreciate you guys. Perfect timing, by the way, Ryan. You got that in. And again, for our sponsors, Specialized Physical Therapy, Dr. Paul Vidal at specializedphysicaltherapy.com, Ambuck Services. Let them know that the fam at A2D sends you get 20% off at ambuckservices.com. QB54, playqb54.com. Use the promo code No Notes, get you 10% off. Philly Drinkers, awesome shirts are dropping. Is there a new shirt on there?
So there actually is a new shirt on there. Alex sent me a message earlier this morning, actually before early this afternoon. There's an NWO style A2D shirt up on Philly Drinkers now, along with the Lazy Booking shirt, the In This Very Ring shirt, the Hockey Happy Hour shirt, all the fix. The fix. I have to say the fix for Ryan.
All of our shows here, Ryan. That's right, 110%, Andy. You got to give it.
I was
listen.
I was gonna. Never mind.
Listen, show shirts,
bastard.
Show shirts, station shirts, shorts. We now have
the shorts are now up there.
Swim shorts. And then we have that one right there, the Philadelphia QB Factory. You see that? That shirt is fire. And if you go on phillydrinkers.com and you type in the promo code A2D, you'll get 25% off of that shirt. It's exclusive to that shirt, not your whole order, just to make sure everybody understands that. So check them out, phillydrinkers.com. Apparently a lot of the stuff is going, so that's awesome for
there's
everybody.
There's 42 different products up there. It's insane.
So, for us here, guys, again, and for our guest, Ken Shamrock, again, check out the book, Shamrock, The World's Most Dangerous Man, done with Jonathan Snowden. You can find it on kenshamrock.com. Follow him on social media. Check him out on Impact. Awesome time with Ken, and we appreciate him. We appreciate your comments and tuning in. For us, have a great week. Stay safe and take care.